What's up, everybody? We are here at NAB 2018 on the Maxon showroom floor. We are here with Jon Bosley. He at the Insidium booth, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Jon, you've been showing off a lot of the work with X Particles. Insidium, of course, the creator of X Particles and Cycles 4D.
Yep.
And X Particles 4 just recently came out within the past.
Last year.
Okay. Yeah. So give me kind of like a update for those who are still on 3.5. What kind of the updates to X Particles 4 were?
So there are probably too many to say in in one interview, but the big ones are kind of effects based. So we've got like something called exposure effects, which does smoke and fire simulations. We've got better liquid solvers. There's open VDB meshing, which is super fast, super smooth, very stable. There's in the next release that's coming out, which is still going to be 4, but it's like a next iterative release. It's faster, lots of speed improvements, passing color around. Yeah, there's so much that it was quite intimidating when I was when I first opened it, but just it's awesome.
Talk to me a little bit about the integration between X Particles and Cycles 4D, because anytime someone asks me, we're talking render engines and stuff, one of my main questions is, are you using X Particles in your workflow all the time?
Right.
Because anytime they are, I always say Cycles 4D has such a good incorporation of that.
So because these guys make X Particles and they ported Cycles, they literally, you can pass all the color information from the particles, which most engines can do. It's just the way you do it. It can do it live. It can pass the smoke information from the exposure effects container, and it also can access other, third-party fluid sim stuff, but it's just the integration to X Particles is insane. You can just grab attributes, different color, radius, scale, and drive color by those parameters after you've simulated. So you could have a cached sim and change everything about it. You could change the scale of the particles, the color, which is really hard to do in other packages. So yeah, that's the advantage of Cycles, definitely. Just the integration.
Let's see. I had another question about. Weren't there some really big updates to some of the cloth in 4? So that was like a huge introduction.
Yeah, exactly. I can't list them all. There's so many. Yeah. So the cloth was totally new in 4. I mean, you could make it using something called the constraints object, but that was in 3.5. But you couldn't do tearing. You couldn't edit it like a cloth. It's very intuitive now. You literally drop a plane in and you press the create cloth button. Literally, it's that.
Yeah.
And then you can collide it with stuff. And because it's particles, it works with all the particle modifiers. So you can spin it around, have turbulence on it, and attract it, do all sorts of crazy stuff. And it's really stable as well.
Yeah. I was going to say, I love Maxon, I love Cinema 4D. They bring us out here, we do this stuff and we help them out. But I got to say the cloth stuff in X Particles looks so clean in comparison just to the basic cloth in Cinema 4D.
One of the main things is that the fact that it's particle-to-particle collisions, it means that the self-collisions of the cloth really hold true. And if you up the subframe steps enough, you'll see no intersections in the cloth. And you can just drop cloth on cloth. Which is hard to do in most engines, and it won't intersect, and it's super stable. I love it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let me ask you about this. You just released a course on Grayscale Gorilla.
I did, yeah.
Doing basically all X Particles training.
Yeah. It was the Gorilla Guide to X Particles. It was like the fundamentals and just going a bit beyond the fundamentals, and trying to cover everything in XP is really difficult.
I can imagine, yeah.
And that was in 3.5. And then 4 released, so we're going to do an update to that, which is coming out pretty soon. And that's going to cover all the dynamic stuff, all the liquid sims, all the smoke sims, all that kind of stuff. Cloth, like you said. That's like a lot.
That's with version 4? That's
with version 4. So it's literally the version 4 update for GSG Gorilla Guide.
Fantastic. So I'm a fairly new X Particles user. We've had it. It's one of those. I don't know. Me personally, I love buying plugins.
Me too.
I don't use them all the time. Yeah. But we've had X Particles for a while, and it wasn't until recently that I really wanted to push myself to learn it, because I was kind of on this, and maybe you've encountered this with a few people today. They're like, well, should I move to Houdini? Should I just really learn X Particles?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is kind of dragging people. It's kind of like, tearing people back in towards staying in C4D. That's the big advantage, right? Yeah. Is that you can do a lot of stuff that you can. I mean, Houdini is.
It's killer, yeah.
right? But having this inside C4D, not having to jump out to another app, it's really attractive, right? So you can just, and there's some things in here something called the flow field, where you're like dealing with velocity vectors, and that's a very Houdini-esque idea, being able to kind of drive velocity vectors using polygons, splines, all that kind of stuff. So you can build your own modifiers from scratch. So yeah, it's kind of elevating it to sort of an advanced, like VFX, you know, aspiring to be a VFX workflow.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say, you know, who are in Houdini and like just use Cinema 4D, that they're like, wow, with all of the advancements that's going on with X particles, you almost like it's giving Houdini a fight for its money.
Yeah, and I love them both, by the way. So
I mean, I do too.
I like all the toys, but I'll be honest. I actually used to jump out to Houdini all the time to do my meshing, like literally all the time, because of VDB, Open VDB meshing, and now they put it in X particles. I've found myself staying in there because it's just as fast, smoothing operations. And it's nice to work, you know, in one system. Don't have to boot up another one. Right. Yeah.
So as a beginning user, I do have to compliment Insidium, because the online videos that you guys have, I think are some of the, you know, when you buy a software or buy a plugin, there's not a lot of documentation, or you get just the paper. Right. And you know, we're artists. We don't like to, that's why there's so much tutorials out there, because none of us wants to read a manual. Yeah. So I just have to compliment Insidium on their amazing video library of it.
I'm with you. That helped me learn it from the very start, because Mike from Insidium recorded them all. So it's in every object in X particles, you have a question mark icon and a video icon, and one takes you to the video tutorial and one takes you to the manual, and it's just like, that's such nice integration. You know, like I'm stuck on a feature here, I need to work out what this parameter does. You can jump to the manual if you're that guy, or you can jump to the video. Everyone jumps to the video, right? Yeah. So yeah.
So where would you recommend for someone to start who has never used X particles before?
Definitely those. Insidium put out really good beginner sort of starters things, and also just, for me personally, when I get a piece of software, I like to just bump up against the walls a bit, just throw stuff together and see what happens. But there are plenty of good intro, you know, free tutorials online and that kind of stuff. Obviously my GSG guide, but plug, no, and that's a good intro. But yeah, if you're going to just start, the cool thing is it's very Cinema 4D centric. So the paradigm of having a cloner and then modifying that cloner with an effector, like changing those clones, it's exactly the same principle, having an emitter and then having a modifier modify those particles. So it very much feels the same as it should, feels like it's right in C4D, essentially. Instead of thinking particles, which was a bit more nodal, and you sort of have to plug stuff in and guess a little bit, but yeah. Okay.
Awesome. So where can people find it if they want to purchase either X particles or Cycles 4D?
That's insidium.com, I believe, insidium.com, or just xparticles.com, and you'll get there. Yeah, and you'll get both Cycles and X particles info there.
John, where can people find you online?
Just Twitter at Brasco UK, all one word. And yeah, that's from there. You'll see all my other links as well for Vimeo and stuff like that. So
awesome! Thank you for taking this time.
No worries.
From the showroom for NAB 2018 Day 3, we will be right back with more videos. Stick around.